You are listening to Toronto's only pure metal show, The Red Switch.
And stuff, and Glenn and I were certainly the ones who always tried to make the guys do that. You know, we kind of took charge of the bands back in those days. You know, we're kind of the ones who tried to make everything, you know, happen in terms of what songs we're going to do or what originals. The few originals that we did way back when were written by me, so you know that's something that I started. And I'm glad I did way back then. You know, I started playing guitar probably about a year or two after I started playing drums, and while I wasn't near as good as Glenn, of course, my songwriting abilities took on really early on, so I'm kind of glad I did that in high school. That kind of shaped to what I became, you know, to do later on in years. I've written several albums with previous band that Glenn and I did called Eidolon. I recorded almost every song on there I had written, so, and that led me to do a song on the new Megadeth album called Head Crusher. I wrote the music for that, so.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
When Megadeth was on Gigantour, did you, Shawn, notice any young metal groups out there that really stood out?
On the bill, I mean, well, there wasn't a ton of young bands. I mean, Nevermore was on there. They're a great band, a band called 70X. None of these guys are, you know, really young per se. They're certainly not as old as Megadeth. Haven't been around as long as Megadeth, but we had a ton of great bands. I mean, on the first, all the Gigantours, really, if you go down the list. I mean, Arch Enemy was on the second one. Children of Bodom on the third one. They're younger bands, but they're not, you know, they didn't come out 2 years ago or anything. But, you know, we always tried to take a lot of bands that weren't just, you know, they didn't have to be excruciatingly painful, brutal metal bands. You know, we took out Dillinger Escape Plan, which is totally avant-garde. I don't even think you can categorize those guys, but it was great taking them out because they're so talented musically and they're just so off the wall that it was really cool to bring someone out like that and who could be exposed to a different audience for them. So that was really cool for me. I mean, that's, of all the bands we've taken out on all the Gigantours, I would say that Dillinger was
the one that really stands out.
The most off-the-wall band, and the band that I took the most pleasure in observing, too. They were great. Really nice people as well, and their art is undefinable, if you ask me, which I think is great.
It makes me happy to hear that, because we would argue that they're one of the pioneers of tech metal, which is a relatively new subgenre. Is there any other subgenre that you can think of that's really kind of blown you away and thought this is really interesting?
No, and the reason being, I'm not real big on defining everything. Now it's, you know, there's so many subgenres of metal now. It's getting to the point where it's just ridiculous for me. So when people ask me, or would ask me in the past, what kind of music you play, I would always say heavy metal, you know, because, you know, I don't know, and I think it could be a bad thing sometimes too, because it's something like a subgenre called power metal. If people hear that term, they automatically think, okay, the guy's singing into the stratosphere, and it's really fast, and they're playing, 100 million miles an hour and all that stuff, and that can turn somebody off before they even get a chance to hear it, just because of the definition. So just on that alone, it's not something that I really like to embrace so much. You know what I mean? It's all derivative from metal, as far as I can tell. So I don't like to categorize stuff too much, to be honest with you. Again, I mean, you call Dillinger, what did you call them?
They're along the lines of like a technical or math.
I mean, they have that element. They certainly have technical element, and they've got a mellow element, but they've got all kinds of different stuff too. I mean, it's to me, you can't categorize that band, and I think that's a beautiful thing. You know, I mean, you can if you want to, but to me, it's like, you know, they go into so many different musical directions that it's a really cool thing, and they get away with it. So
I agree.
That to me is really great.
Everyone's getting bogged down now with labels and classifying music and what is, you know, this type of music and what is not.
Right.
But,
yeah, and then you get that whole argument too. Oh, they're not power metal. Yes, they are. No, they're not. It's like, you know what, dude? If you like them, that's great. You can call them whatever you want. You know, you call them peanut butter metal for all I care.
Maybe that'll be a new
if
genre.
It's good, right?
Yeah.
That's how I look at it. If it's something that I enjoy, I really don't care what it is. As long as I like it, that's the bottom line.
Yeah.
You know.
Shawn, maybe you can explain this for me. I've noticed on a lot of fan-based websites, there's this internet phenomenon going on where you are the subject of all these outrageous legends and tales that are similar to Chuck Norris. You know what I'm talking about? It's stuff like Shawn Drover took out a drumstick in an airport once. there were no survivors. And Shawn Drover destroyed the periodic table because he only recognizes the element of metal. Are you familiar with this? How can you explain that?
That comes from our message board. That's obviously something that's grown from something that usually lasts about 25 posts before it gets old to now it's up to close to being like 1,000 different posts or something. I think it's funny. It's as long as it's taken in a nice way and nobody's saying anything really bad or anything like that, or anything that offends, maybe younger kids on our message board, then they let them have at it. There's worse things they could be doing, If it's done in a positive manner, and obviously it's, from a comedic standpoint, I'm all about that. So I think it's funny, more power to them. It's, a lot of them are showing affection in a comedic fashion, so I don't see anything wrong with that. And by the way, all of them are true. So
I was going to ask that. Is it true? I guess so.
It is true. It is true.
You've actually really much taken on a legendary status right now in the drumming world. Do you ever host or put on any drum clinics? Can somebody actually learn the Drover drumming technique?
I started doing them. I've done 3 actually in the interim of us being off tour. After the Judas Priest tour we did that ended in March, we had a big time gap between. The record was pretty much done at that point for me with the drums, and we're just getting ready to go on tour this Friday. So do the math. That's a long time for me being at home doing nothing. So. Made a couple of phone calls to some endorsers, and I said, why don't we set up a couple of clinics? And that's what happened, and they turned out really well. But they were, in all honesty, it was more like a Shawn Drover Storytellers kind of thing where, I would play a Megadeth song, talk about it, the experience that, I had with it or whatever, and then answer some questions. And, I did that for 5 songs. The next thing you know, an hour and a half has gone by. So I was very comfortable doing it. If I was to go on there and talk about, rudiments and stick control for 45 minutes, I think everybody, including myself, would have fallen asleep. So that's not something that interests me a whole lot, but the way I approached it and ultimately did it was something that was comfortable and interesting. So, and they were all successful, so it was fun.
Nice.
Do you set out any rules for yourself, like, once the creative process starts to drastically shrink, then you'll set sail and embark on something else?
Oh, I think this is the way I'm going to be for life. I've been like this since I was 13 years old. I can't really see me doing anything else, to be honest with you, and I can't see my passion for this diminishing in any way, or the creativity I have for it. It's nonstop every day. I always think of something relating to music or what I do. It's not something that I don't think about. I think about it all the time, and I can't see that. If anything, really, I've gotten more passionate about it as years have gone on. So many people will say, when you grow up, you're not going to like that kind of crap music and all that stuff. It's like, if anything, I like much more aggressive music now than I did 20 years ago, certainly. So, but I like all kinds of music, and I may not play metal when I'm 75 and old and gray in a wheelchair, but I'll certainly play some kind of music. But then again, who knows? Maybe I'll play. Why couldn't I play that kind of music when I'm old? Ozzy's doing it, and the guys in Heaven and Hell, and they're 60 and beyond. It's like if Glenn Tipton from Judas Priest is 61. That guy looks amazing. If he can do that, or these guys can do it and still pull it off and look good, hey, they've got almost 20 years on me, so I don't see doing anything different in the foreseeable future at all.
It must be because they play metal music. It must be something in the notes.
I think there's some kind of anti-aging.
Should bottle it and
somewhere.
sell it.
I don't know what it is, but you look at some of these guys, and it's like, man, they look great. It's really cool. So, and they're still doing it, and they're still kicking butt. If they all went up there and did it, and it looked ridiculous, and it was it was just they're doing it for all the wrong reasons, that would be one thing. But I talked to a lot of these guys, and they're still really passionate about what they do, and they love it, and the fans do as well. So, I don't see anything wrong with that.
No, absolutely. They should keep going as long as possible.
As long as they can do it, and as long as they can, as long as it still sounds good and looks good and all that stuff, I'm all for it. Yeah.
It just goes to show how much passion they have for it.
One last question for you, Shawn. Very important. This Thursday, the Leaf season opener, they're hosting against the Habs this Thursday. You'd be watching?
Yeah. Will I watch it?
Yeah.